everyone. So as Cara said, I'm Kia, one of the employability coordinators. So I can see a few of you that I speak to kind of monthly. So nice to see you all. So just kind of an overview of what we'll be doing today. We're going to firstly pass over to Amy Genders, one of our lovely SEO student experience officers. She's going to go through kind of tips on how to manage kind of your workload, how to be productive when you feel like you'll be, a little bit flagging, which we definitely all are. We know firsthand, how difficult work from home can be sometimes. And I think definitely kind of January has been really tough. That's tough anyway, let alone with a pandemic as well. So yeah, Amy's just going to go through that and kind of share tips on how to stay connected and support your well-being. Then Hannah, one of our employability consultants, will be working through some kind of work from home tips and how to make the most of your placement. And we think, this will be really beneficial for you, hopefully. And, hopefully you can take some really good tips away from this and feel a little bit more kind of productive on your placement as well. So yeah, if you do have any questions or anything, feel free to pop them in the chat box and we'll answer them at the end. But yeah, hopefully this is a really useful session, and I'm just going to pass over to Amy.
Hi everyone, as Kia said, I'm Amy Genders, a student experience officer within the school. So some of you may already know me. If you don't, the student experience officers are here for anything which impacts on you or your studies during your time with us. I currently support students predominantly within the business department, but I've got my colleagues Laura Mail, who covers accounting and finance, and then Peter Griffiths, who covers economics. So please, if you need anything during this time, you can reach out to us either directly or via the SOM Experience email address. For today, I'm just here for around sort of 15 minutes to talk a bit about motivation, productivity and well-being. So those are three big words to fit into 15 minutes. So the aim of this session is really just in response to some of the feedback that Kia and Karis have been having, just to help you think a little bit more about where you can start with dealing with those issues around motivation, what can help you with some practical tips around well-being, but give you a starting point at which to do some more research, see what works for you, and hopefully get things moving in the right direction. So going to move on. The first thing we'll discuss is motivation. So Mullins 2002 states that motivation is a driving force through which people strive to achieve their goals and fulfill a need or uphold a value. So when we think about motivation, using those words driving force is really about an energy. It's about something that moves you forward. And you can see there the words in bold, the goals, the need and the value. Those are almost your building blocks of motivation. So our needs, those are our basic requirements for survival. So our physical and our psychological needs. So it might be kind of hunger, thirst, love, friendship. Those are what we're talking about when we mention needs. Our values, these are the things that we consider to be most important to us. For some people, it's family, for others, it's health, wealth. It's likely to be a combination. And also our values are individual. You'll have some that are very similar to other people's, but for some of you, what's important to you may not necessarily be to other people. And goals, those are just the outcomes that we're working towards. So I want you to keep this in mind when we're going through this, that motivation is about that driving force and that energy. But I'm going to move on to just one theory around motivation. If you want to pick this up and look further, there's so much stuff online around motivation, and you can look at sort of intrinsic and extrinsic, so kind of whether you're motivated by wealth or it's more internal about those feelings. But today, I'm just going to focus on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So it was first introduced by Abraham Maslow in 1943 in his paper called A Theory of Human Motivation. So he revisited that in 1954 and made some changes, but even though it's a bit of an older theory, it stayed quite popular within sociology, management training and psychology. So for business students and within school management, you may well have heard of this previously. So the theory suggests that The higher needs, so when we're looking at self-actualization, they only begin to emerge when people have sufficiently satisfied the previous needs. So he suggested that you start at the base of the pyramid, and this is where sort of the motivation comes from. You can only really progress once you've achieved the level to an extent that you're comfortable with. So at the bottom, that's where we begin, our physiological needs. So it's satisfying sort of our innate and our physical needs. So we're thinking things like food, water, shelter, sleep. Those are those things that we need to just survive. And I know sort of lots of us, we take it for granted, but usually those things are kind of, we've got them in place by this stage in our life, and we can proceed up. Next area looks more at safety. So our personal security, our employment, our resources, health. It thinks about things like finances. Next one up, that love and belonging, or sometimes called social belonging. It's really satisfying the social needs, and that includes things like you want to belong, be accepted. It's about friendship, intimacy, family. It's that sense of connection fits in that level. And then above there is self-esteem. So this is really kind of starts to look at satisfying the needs of our egos, really. So it's things like status, respect, recognition, prizes, and our self-esteem really fits into that area there. When we get to the top, that's self-actualization. That's basically about achieving your potential, your ability. It's about your desire to become the most that you can be. So for you all on placement, the area you're looking at there, that might fit into that self-actualization because you've gone through a process, you put loads of work into getting your placement because you want to be the most employable and experienced you can be when you leave us. You want to be always growing and learning. So that's at the top of the pyramid, and it's something that is underpinned by us having our other needs met lower down. In my opinion, what's happening right now has really, for lots of people, thrown the bottom of the pyramid up in the air a little bit, because when you were going on placement, you would have thought about things like, am I going to a city I feel safe in? Will I have connections there? Have I got the finances and the funding to get me through the placement? For those of you who've got a paid placement, that would have been a consideration. And for those of you who weren't on a paid placement, you would have been thinking those finance things because you wanted to make sure that you were safe and that you could go there and belong and settle in and meet people. And right now, we maybe don't feel as safe as we have in previous years, in previous weeks and months, because the world has taken a turn, and with the pandemic, lots of us are feeling a little bit more isolated, like we haven't got those connections, that we aren't achieving as much, and that we are, you know, we're in our houses with lots of time to be thinking about these things. You can see on the diagram, it mentions the bottom four are deficiency needs. So what that means is the motivation to meet these needs comes from a deficit. So for example, with the physiological needs, if you're hungry, you become motivated to get some food or something to settle that need. Generally, once you've eaten, that motivation drops down. So we don't constantly then keep looking for the motivation to grow, because our need has been met and the deficit has then been reduced. We're not hungry anymore. We tend to settle down. I'm usually a little bit less moody then when I'm not hungry, and we just go along with our day. What you can see at the top on the right hand side is the self-actualization, the growth needs. The motivation there tends to keep going. So if you've set yourself a goal to get the placement, you'll be motivated to get it. You get it, but then that doesn't mean your motivation goes. You're then motivated to reach the next goal on your placement, or your, you know, what's your next challenge going to be? So for those growth, it's about always trying to grow and improve. And I think right now, one message I would say is that it's really important that you're kind to yourself and understand that the bottom of this pyramid is going to make you have some deficits right now. And when you're getting those feelings, if you're feeling that you're not connected or you're isolated or you don't feel safe, think about what your body and your mind are trying to tell you and what actions you can take to resolve it. And some of these will be covered within here as well, but a really important message is be kind. It's a difficult time and there is reasons why maybe we're not feeling as motivated as we have previously. And one thing with motivation as well is often we'll say our motivation is completely gone, we haven't got any motivation. What is actually happening is your motivation is being directed somewhere else. So usually we're motivated to get out to work and achieve. Right now we're in the house and actually our motivation might just be about surviving and getting us through the day. So our motivation is more to stay in bed because we're trying to keep ourselves safe and secure, which are really natural things that we would be looking for. So I'm going to move on now to just look a little bit at, okay, we know that motivation and productivity are difficult at the moment. What are some practical things that we can do about that? I've decided to just focus on one of the priority matrices. Again, if this is something that you think I'd like to know more about, absolutely do go online, look at this. There's loads of stuff on there. If you search that, there's lots of different ones and you'll find one that really matches with you. Other thing I'd say is that within the university, the Centre for Academic Success, they also do courses on time management. So I'd encourage you to have a look at that as well, because you'll definitely get some really good information, both online and then through their courses as well. So it's the Centre for Academic Success. So the one I'm going to focus on today is the Eisenhower Matrix, which is used by former President of the USA, Dwight D. Eisenhower. So a quote that he was famous for is, "Most things which are urgent are not important, and most things which are important are not urgent." So this was something that he used, and it's been developed over the years by Stephen Covey. So with your workload, we know that sort of our social life and some of the really fun things have maybe diminished a little bit these recent months, but actually workloads, when you speak to people, it seems to be that they're very, very busy. And also when we aren't feeling ourselves, when we're struggling for motivation, we can also fall into a little bit of procrastination. I know this because I'm amazing at it, a really natural thing to do. And sometimes just having a tool that you can draw on will really be able to help you get a focus on a difficult day. So this model would say that you need to split things up. So if you've got your to-do list, it would split it up into four quadrants, and it would be based on important tasks and urgent tasks. So it's really important for you to know what's the difference. So for important tasks, they're directly related to achieving your goals, whereas urgent tasks are those that require immediate attention. A little bit of a difference there as well is with the urgent tasks, especially in the workplace and when you're potentially not at a management level, often the urgent tasks relate to other people's time frames and deadlines as well. So these might be the tasks that we get a lot of pressure with. So in terms of allocating your tasks, it's so important that you're realistic and honest. So it's about you taking time to think about, okay, what are the ones that are important and urgent compared to what's important and not urgent. So with the 4 quadrants, I'm going to go first to the do and do it now. So these things are important and urgent. So they help you achieve your goals and they also require immediate attention. So these are the things that get done. For example, it might be a client has a pressing need that you have to respond to straight away, or you've got a deadline driven project to complete. If you don't do them, there's often consequences, and that's the reason why they become priorities. The second quadrant, this is the decide, so schedule a time to do it. Things you do here tend to be about improving the quality of your work and your life. So they're about improving relationships, seizing new opportunities. It's often the personal development work. It's helping to develop others within teams. It's about preventing problems, preparation, and good planning. It's the time that you invest in things for there to be a payoff later on, which is why it's important, because it's still working towards your goals. Something I've got to say here, which is absolutely key, is it says schedule a time to do it and not postpone. This isn't about just putting it off and not doing those. The second quadrant, the decide, is really important. You'll do a lot of good work there. The third one, which is delegate, it's not important, but it's urgent. Okay, so this can be a bit of a deceptive area, because you may feel it's important because it's urgent, but that isn't always the case. And things that can come in there might be some types of emails, certain meetings that we all get pulled into, but don't actually contribute to your mission or your objectives, or really help you with your high priority goals. You're just caught up in them. It's things that maybe don't take your specialist skill set. So does it have to be you that does that piece of work, or is there a chance that you could delegate it to someone else? And think about this with your, your home life and your work life. Often we're caught up with things, and we're doing them because we think, oh, we've just got to get them done. Whereas actually the person you live with might be able to help out with something, or is there a teammate whose skill set is actually better matched to it, so that you aren't then having to take on all of it. The final quadrant is the delete or eliminate it. And really, this is an area that lots of us find ourselves in quite a lot of the time. You're working on things and trying to be productive, but you're online, you're doing non-important stuff. And really, this is a little bit of time wasting and escapism goes on in this section. I'm sure we've all been online and you click on something and 2 hours later, you've just fallen down a hole on the internet and you haven't got anything done. That's kind of the stuff that you're thinking, okay, put it and eliminate it for now. If I get time, I can do it, or don't do it at all. I put a little note there just about something some of you may like to try called a loop list. So those things that possibly aren't important and they're not urgent, but actually you'd quite like to do them, you can add them to a list called a loop list and maybe prioritize an hour or two a week where you just work down your loop list. If you don't get things done, it just carries on to the time next week. Think about those things that are on your to-do list that have been on the last 8 to-do lists. Okay, so maybe you can put those on there and use an hour or two a week to get through them. The areas to be productive that we want to be sort of living in most of the time are quadrant 1 and 2. So the do and the decide. And for the decide, where we've said that so much of the work that goes on in there is really important for you achieving your goals, something that you can do, as I said, is schedule a deadline. And what that does is it then makes it more urgent. It says to our minds, well, there's a deadline now. It's now both important and urgent. And we know that when it's important and urgent, we've got more likeliness that we're going to get it done. Some people like to use the matrix and draw it out like that. What other people like to do is with your to-do list, you can number these 1 to 4 and then go through your list and put the numbers next to it so that you know which are the things you're going to do first, those number ones, which are the 2, the decide, 3, delegate, 4, delete. This is a really simple way to just look at how you prioritize your work. And because it's simple, there definitely are sort of downsides to it. So here we're looking at just 2 areas. We're saying, is it important and is it urgent? Whereas when we're in sort of the real world, we also need to know things like, are there the resources to do it? How much effort is there? Is it going to take, what skills do I need to do this? So this really is a basic tool to just help you get started with it, to prioritize. As I said, if you want to go online, if you get along to a library, there's so much stuff out there, and there's definitely a tool that will match with you and feel like it's a good starting point. So this is something you can use on its own, Or you can couple it with the next technique, which I'm going to go on to, which is more of a time management technique. So the Pomodoro Technique is around how we can be more productive. So for you, if you want to use the Eisenhower Matrix to get your to-do list, but you can do this just with a standard to-do list as well, where you look at it and prioritize what's going on for you. So I don't know if any of you know this, but a Pomodoro is just a tomato. So the reason it's called that is the inventor of this, he based it on one of these tomato timers that you have in the kitchen, because it's around using a timer for your productivity. I know at the moment more than ever, lots of us are trying to work and we're having long, uninterrupted sessions. We're decreasing our focus until we're at a point where we can't focus at all and we're just not being productive. But with it being work, we feel like we've got to keep working because we're supposed to be working, whereas actually it's almost counterintuitive. We're falling into being busy rather than being productive. And sometimes to be productive, it isn't about working every minute, it's about working effectively, and it's about supporting your well-being and making sure that you are able to concentrate and work within those periods rather than just slogging through hour after hour and nothing, you know, not getting anything up on that screen. So this technique is about just creating optimized and maximized focus to help you complete tasks faster. And it's also been shown to reduce mental fatigue as well. And that's partly because you are doing those quicker sessions, and they're very high focus chunks with short breaks, so that you are getting time between it. Okay, so what is the Pomodoro Technique? As you can see there, you go through, you pick your task, and that's going to be what you complete within that Pomodoro. So a Pomodoro is 25 minutes of work followed by a 5 to 10 minute break. So when we say Pomodoro, that's what it's referring to. So you set your 25 minutes, you don't have any distractions, you just work on the task that you've allocated to that Pomodoro. When your timer goes off, you stop doing the work, and they do say to be quite strict with yourself there. Stop doing the work, record your progress, and it's important that you mark down you've completed one Pomodoro. And there's a reason for that, which we'll get to in a second. So you've completed your one Pomodoro, you take a 5-minute break, 5 to 10 minutes. You get up, you move, you might want to check your phone, get a drink, pop to the toilet. You know, whatever you need to do, a little bit of fresh air. Really are encouraged to get up though. Don't just kind of then stop what you're doing and go on to something else on the screen. Take that break away from it. After 5 to 10 minutes, you're back to it again, and set your timer and carry on for your second Pomodoro. Once you've done that 4 times, then you get a longer break, so 15 to 30 minutes. And once you've completed that, you would then start again. Okay, so it's one Pomodoro is the 25 minutes. You do 4 of those and then a longer break. And then it would start again. So you need to do 4 of them again to get the longer break, and so on. So what they find from this is that productivity is increased. People feel that the timer can be motivating, that you can really start to think about your productivity and begin to think how many minutes it's going to take you for certain tasks. You can also look at how productive your day has been based on how many Pomodoros you do. So for some people, they say that if they do below 8, that it wouldn't be very productive, but if you're getting up to 12 or 16, then that's really a productive focus day. And if we think that each of those will equate to sort of around the 4 will be around sort of 2 hours work, if you could have those 2-hour blocks of being very productive with well-being breaks in the middle, then it's really good intense work that's getting that product out the other side. There are things with it that maybe it's not perfect for everything, but it can be really helpful when you want to do some intense work, when motivation's low, and importantly, when you don't really need interaction with people. This is a good tool for when you're working on your own and you just want to make sure you're a little bit more focused. It can also help with distractions. You can let your friends or your colleagues, if I'm usually the person in the office who talks to everyone, but you can let people know that you're trying something new to not interrupt you during that time, but you'll go back to them. Also says that if a distraction pops in your mind, you know, sometimes you're working and you think, oh, I needed to put air in my tires. Just make a note of it. Don't let your mind go to it. Make a note of it so that you can return to it. So again, this is just a really quick introduction to the Pomodoro Technique. There's lots of other productivity techniques out there as well. So look into it, try this one out, see if you find it helpful. And what they say is the 25 minutes is the optimum time, but some people will maybe amend those to be from 20 to 35 minutes. They say not to go longer, just because you're then drifting into those sitting for long periods. That's one of the techniques you can try. And coming towards the end of my section now, I just wanted to touch a little bit on the well-being side of things. And this is a model that was created by the New Economics Foundation, which is just a set of evidence-based actions to improve personal well-being. So they looked at and researched what helps people with their general well-being. And there were certain areas that they felt that if you were engaged in all 5 of these areas, actually our well-being saw an increase. So connect, some of them are really straightforward, so I'm not going to sort of talk about them too long, but connect is about talking and listening. It's about being there, feeling connected. So it's with the people around you, your family, your friends, your colleagues. It's about these are almost your cornerstones or your pillars of life, and if you invest time into developing them, then they can really just help and support and enrich you day to day, because you know that you've got those people around you, you've got those connections there on good days, and on bad days you feel that support. When I move on to the next slide, I'll be giving you just a couple of examples, because I am really aware that right now it feels a little bit harder to be connected. So be active is the next one. So being active is doing what you can, enjoy what you do, and move your mood. So moving around. So can we just go back to the last one, Han? Sorry. Thank you. So with the being active, everyone likes different things. So being active for some people is a quick walk. For others, they're very into competitive sport. They're into yoga, dance. It might be playing a game where you move around, but it's just about discovering a physical activity you enjoy. And the key is it suits your level of mobility and fitness. Okay, so it doesn't have to be sport. It really is just about moving your body in any way. That's something I really would encourage you to do within the working day as well, even if it's just getting up and moving around the house every now and then, because we're all slipping into a lot of time being very still, and that movement really does just give you a little bit of a break there. So take notice. So remember the simple things that give you joy. This is something with busy lives in particular that we definitely sometimes forget to do, because life just whooshes us along. So taking notice is about being in the moment. It's about being curious. It's about you know, noticing the seasons changing, enjoying the moment you're in, whether it's, you know, going for a walk or eating lunch or talking to friends. Just enjoy the moment for what it is. Be aware of the world around you and sort of what you're feeling. And just really reflecting on those experiences will help you to appreciate what matters to you. Sometimes, especially when things are difficult, we just lose sight of those things, and looking around, thinking about how many colours of green you can see in nature, or listening for a particular noise, really just helps take a break from that cycle, especially a cycle of stress, and just brings you back to a little bit of a more grounded, settled place. Keep learning. So again, we know that you're all learning on your placement, you're also still our students, and that you've got this going on, which is absolutely great. But also, if you get a couple of minutes, try something new, or rediscover an old interest, sign up for a course, take on a different responsibility at work, learn a language, or learn how to cook your friend's favorite food, set up a challenge. These things are kind of motivational, and just again, it activates different responses from our minds and from our bodies as well, and lots of them are cathartic. With learning, there's lots of research about how just keeping your mind active really helps in the future with aging, that kind of thing. And these are good habits we can get into when we're young to take forward with us. And then the last one on this is give. This may be things like volunteering, but it may be things that are smaller. So do something nice for a friend or a stranger, thank someone, smile. It's about looking out as well as in, so that seeing yourself and your happiness being connected to the wider community can be really rewarding. It just really helps in another way with those connections with the people around you. So those are 5 ways to well-being. And for my final slide, I've just put a couple of examples of things that you could do there. This is by no means exhaustive. It was just a starting point, but I'm sure you'll all have lots of ideas there. So connect, you could join a society, access online community support. So together all you can access free of charge with your university email account, and it's kind of an online support platform, and it's forum based, so it's peer-to-peer support and discussion. There's workshops and information on there as well. Keep learning, so that's the free courses at Open University. There's a range of them there, really short courses, and they break them down with how many hours each one would take. Learn a language, take notice. The thing that comes out there is mindfulness is really key to this area. So there's a little bit of information on mindfulness with some links, and also meditation is another thing that's really helpful in terms of taking notice and bringing you into the moment. So the website I've put there, I've linked to a therapist that we've used for some sessions, so she's got free meditations on there, but the wider site as well has got lots of again, different types of meditation. There's things around sleep, mindfulness, lots of really helpful free resources. Be active, free Pilates and Zumba classes from Welfare at Campus Life. Or if you're not sure where to start, then I'm a big fan of just YouTubing it, because there's so much stuff on there. So I've done some yoga, some home workouts. I've done some really bad dancing. There's anything that you kind of want from an active point, just have a look, see what feels comfortable and safe for you. Does it match with your fitness and your mobility levels? But loads of things on there, and the beauty of it is no one sees you doing it either, so you can just be in the house. It doesn't matter. You can try these things out, which will maybe boost your confidence to go along to a class when we get back to that, gyms being open, that type of thing. For the give, check out Discovery, loads of volunteering opportunities there, and they've responded really well to the pandemic, so that students can still engage and volunteer, with it being remote. So there's lots of opportunities there. Also, I think it was last week, the Connect project launched, so that's very much about students who are feeling isolated and about connections. I've put it into the give section because you could become a student connector, but it could also be under the connect area, because you could also apply to have a student connector, so to be put in touch with someone to help you feel connected and settled into university as well. So those are the areas. I just wanted to give you some quick tools that you could take away and some steps you could take with your well-being to get you thinking about it. I hope you will have found it helpful, and I'm just going to pass over to Hannah now, who's going to look more at the working from home side of things. So thank you for listening.
Thanks, Amy. That was brilliant. There was lots there that I think I need to apply to my life. So it's not just kind of for you guys on placement. Loads of useful tools there. So for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Hannah. I'm one of the employability consultants within the School of Management team. So I kind of work with and support Kia and Karis and Amy with kind of placements as well as lots of other things. Hopefully I will have met some of you when you were in your second year or your first year. But if not, this is me. So what I'm basically going to look to cover is it'll kind of build on some of the stuff that Amy's talked about. There will, there's a theme throughout all of this around your well-being, kind of looking after yourself. Without well-being, you can't be motivated and you can't do well on your placement, and kind of looking towards the future. So I'll cover kind of a little bit of both. So I'm sure for all of you, this title, Work from Home, the Joy and the Struggle. I'm sure the same as us, there are elements of working from home that are great. The flexibility, being able to, pop out, living in comfy clothes. I'm just going to ask Kia to do a quick poll to see just how kind of comfy we all are today. Hopefully you'll see something come up just to kind of give you an idea. Just answer question 1 for us at the moment. So me, for example, I've got, a smart-ish kind of shirt on my top half, but I am wearing my comfiest joggers on the bottom half, because that is life working from home with kind of, the freedom and the weirdness of, working from home and being on Zoom. I'm not sure, actually, you might have to answer all of them before it allows you to submit. So we'll kind of come back to these at the relevant times, but you can see there kind of along this theme, where are you working from? Are you kind of quite relaxed on your sofa? Are you at a formal desk? Are you super relaxed in bed, or are you kind of in between? Are you at kind of your kitchen table? And then kind of leading on to some other sections further on, I'll be talking about kind of how you can kind of connect and make the most of your placement and use LinkedIn to stay connected with, as many people as you can. So what I'm going to do, so hopefully you will have had the email through last week, and you hopefully have had a couple of minutes just to check out some of the links that the guys put in there. I'm going to use the NHS kind of tips to tackle work from home to kind of structure the way that we talk about this today. But, along with the positives of comfy clothes and freedom and, being able to stick a wash on in between meetings, I'm sure, just like us, you will have also felt some of the negatives. So, some of the stuff that Amy mentioned, feeling a bit disconnected, maybe feeling a little bit lonely, or just struggling with focus. We've all been there. It is a natural part of what we're dealing with at the moment. So I'll just kind of show you. So healthy habits. So in addition to kind of the well-being stuff that Amy mentioned, what you will find is if you put some work into one area of these types of things, so say if you take on the advice about connecting with friends, or doing a bit of volunteering, if you succeed in one of these areas, they will positively impact on all other areas of your life and other areas that you're maybe looking to kind of work on. So I don't know about everyone else, but this lockdown has felt the worst. In the first couple of lockdowns, us as a team, we had like weekly quizzes. We had, every kind of month or so, we'd have maybe like, a late afternoon, early evening social where we'd all be having a drink on Zoom. There was constant, Zoom catch-ups, games, all sorts going on. We were very proactive in staying connected with friends and, you know, replacing that in-person connection with kind of online versions. As time has gone on, you know, that has probably just, you know, it just feels maybe a little bit boring, or the habit just, you know, hasn't kind of built there. And I feel like the more people that I speak to anyway, you know, the more people are starting to feel, you know, really tired of this, really, you know, fed up generally, and then that will impact on how you are able to focus and achieve in work. So I will start with just kind of some things that you can try for yourself. These are things you might have already done, but it might be a reminder, or for some of you, you may have done this in the first round, or, you know, done this previously, and some of this has started to slip as your mood maybe has started to suffer because of everything we're dealing with at the moment. So with work, you know, for you guys, the majority of you will probably be working, you know, like 9 to 5 type patterns. But obviously with kind of working from home, there is a lot more flexibility around that. So for example, if you know, don't tend to have meetings in the morning, you know, you may, you know, allow yourself to kind of sleep in a little bit more, or, you know, you might set an alarm. You know, I'm a bit of a one for this. You know, I'll set an alarm as late as possible so that I get maximum sleep before my meeting, but then really I won't be performing at my best for that meeting. So set and stick to a routine. So obviously this doesn't have to be every single day. You don't have to kind of stick to this on the weekends or anything like that, but learn, you know, pay attention to yourself, pay attention to when you feel super productive, pay attention to your work calendar. What are the expectations from your colleagues? And set yourself a routine that allows you to perform at your best for kind of every commitment that you have. So try and get up at the same time every day. Try and kind of set an alarm and then get up as that alarm goes off. Something that I've learned about myself is if I press snooze, you know, 1 or 2 / 10 times, I feel that kind of slow start to my day throughout my whole day, and I will not be as focused and productive as I would be if I had just got up on that first alarm and kind of started my day and started kind of a healthy routine. So try and kind of eat something decent. If, you know, you might be a breakfast person, you might not be, but, you know, if you do eat breakfast, eat something kind of nutritious that's going to get you started well. You know, for some people, a bit of kind of, you know, some of the stuff Amy mentioned, maybe do a quick workout in the morning, you know, stretch, take a moment to be kind of present in yourself. There are really, you know, quick, you know, meditation techniques that you can use that will just mean that you start your day in a really positive place. And then equally then, decide when you're going to finish your day. It might not be the same every single day, but, you know, look at your day, plan ahead, think to yourself, right, okay, I'm going to start at this time, I'm going to have lunch at this time. Something that we have to do in our roles is block out time at lunch, because otherwise student appointments get booked in and you end up kind of not being able to stop for your breaks. You know, be proactive. Don't let your calendar kind of rule you. Look ahead, look at your calendar, plan for your time so that you can have, you know, a proper lunch break, you can finish at a certain time. And, you know, you're in control then, and you know what to expect. So again, with that kind of when the workday stops, make sure it is a solid stop. It's not a, you know, or I'll just kind of do something else for a minute and then come back to it. You know, decide on a finish time and stick to it. If you are working somewhere that's super flexible, you know, if you find that you're super productive in the evening, for example, you know, for us, we're able to maybe finish a little bit early, and then if we want to do a certain amount of hours in the evening. If you're going to do stuff like that, again, you know, decide what hours they're going to be, set a start time and a finish time, and then you could use some of those other techniques about staying focused in that time as well. But yeah, so just, you know, routine sounds really boring, but can be really helpful for work and also well-being. So this one might be tricky depending on you know, where you're based, what your living situation is. You might be in a shared house, you might be living with your parents, you might be kind of living in one room. But have a think and see if there is anything that you can do to create a space for yourself that is your workspace. So, you know, this could be, if you are in kind of like a shared house, you know, you could, you know, ask your kind of fellow roommates, you know, can I have this corner of this room, or between this hour and this hour, I need to use the kitchen table to allow myself to have that kind of focus time. As tempting as it is, and we, you know, we all do it, to kind of be on the sofa or be doing work in bed, what that does for you psychologically is it blurs the lines between kind of work and focus time and relax time. You know, traditionally your bedroom should be where you go to relax and shut down and, you know, get ready for sleep. But if you're kind of working in that space as well, it can be really difficult to kind of have a solid line between the two. Either, you know, when you're meant to be working and focused, you're struggling because you're distracted by, you know, all the things that you have in that room, or maybe you're a little bit too comfortable and it's not kind of keeping you focused. Or equally, when you're then trying to relax and sleep, you can't, because you've got your kind of post-it notes and, you know, that is your also your workspace. So do what you can. There is, even for you guys on placement, you can apply for what is called the Employability Bursary. So we'll kind of, I'll put some links in the chat at the end. But if, say, you're sat on a really uncomfortable chair, or you just, you know, can't afford a desk, or, you know, anything like that at the moment, you could use the bursary to get a really good kind of work chair, or, you know, to get yourself a load of nice stationery. Or if you've got kind of connection issues in your house, you know, set aside that money to get a Wi-Fi booster. All of these things, anything that you can make your life when you're working easier and a more focused space is ideal. You know, in a dream world, you know, we'd have a separate room in your house that would be office, and you could shut the door on that. You know, we're not expecting you to be able to do that, but see what else you can do to create yourself a working area that will help with your kind of mindset. Okay, so give yourself a break. So, you know, building on what Amy has already mentioned, this is really important to be able to be productive. You might think that, you know, taking a break will distract you, or, you know, to be really successful, you know, I shouldn't be taking breaks, I should be focused all the time. That will just lead to you feeling kind of really run down, and you might have burnout. And, you know, science shows being able to have those kind of breaks is really important to kind of keep you then being able to focus on tasks, and, you know, be your best self, basically. So that's a really important one. Sorry, 1 second. I've got my thing is blocking the titles for me. Okay, sorry, right. So stay connected. Obviously, Amy's covered this really well, so I'm not going to go into this in too much detail. But what this could mean for you guys, you know, we've spoken to quite a lot of placement students that, because everything has been online, have struggled to, you know, integrate into teams, into a work culture. You know, I don't envy you guys at all having to start a new role and, you know, be on a fixed term kind of contract, and it will be online. You know, for us, it was, we all knew each other. It was, you know, quite an easy kind of transition. We were all, you know, our meetings just moved to online, our service just moved to online. It was already kind of in and scheduled. But we still found that we had to then make adjustments as kind of working from home went on. So if there, you know, if you feel you have the option to, things that we really recommend you do is, you know, schedule in, you know, a digital coffee break with somebody. If you feel that you're not kind of getting enough from your manager, or you just want that extra bit of contact, schedule in regular meetings weekly, so that you, A, get that kind of face-to-face contact with somebody, but B, it can also be a good space to look at kind of the rest of the week and help you stay focused and have, you know, a measurable weekly meeting, you know, where you're chatting about what you've achieved. Something that we've also found really useful, and it took me particularly kind of a while to realise that I was missing it, was that feeling of, you know, when you're sat next to somebody, you're not working on the same project at all, but you're just sat next to them, and every now and again, you'll have kind of a quick chat, or you'll point out something, or you might be like, oh my God, look at this email I've had from Karen, what a nightmare. What we've, kind of discovered that, is really, really useful, and it helps you stay connected and also stay focused, is just try and do that, but on Zoom. So this could be with someone else that's also on placement with you, or it could be with, a friend who was on placement somewhere else. But you could just book, maybe an hour a week or 2 hours a week where you're on Zoom together. You're not kind of meeting about anything. You don't have a purpose to that Zoom, but you're both just working kind of while connected with somebody, where you can kind of have a chat and, just compare notes, or anything like that, or hopefully, have a laugh like you would if you were in a workplace in person. So these are just, a couple of ideas. There's loads of stuff that you could do. If you are feeling lonely or anything like that, obviously, look back at kind of the points that Amy mentioned, and there's stuff that we can offer, the university can offer. And also don't forget, your workplace may have schemes that you can get involved with. A lot of big employers are looking at this now. So make sure you're taking advantage of all of that, because I guarantee you every single other placement student, or even just every other kind of colleague, will be feeling exactly the same, or has felt exactly the same over the past couple of months. So reach out to people, be the proactive one, don't wait for it to come to you, and people will thank you for it. So setting boundaries. So this can be boundaries for yourself, it can be boundaries with your colleagues, it can be boundaries with the people that you share your space with. These are, important, especially as the kind of the lines between kind of work time and, your time, might become a little bit blurred. So this links quite closely to the kind of setting schedules for yourself. You don't want to end up in a situation where you're kind of saying yes to everything, and you end up working much longer hours than you feel that you can manage. With your colleagues, let them know if you need your breaks. Let them know if you're going to have a lunch hour at the same time every day, because that's what works for you and your kind of personal schedule. And then also, if you are kind of sharing spaces with anyone, I spoke to a student the other day that was living with a couple of other students, and they had developed a system where, depending on what they each had going on, whoever had like the most important meeting or session or whatever, they would get priority on the Wi-Fi, for example. So that for that person, going through maybe a stressful meeting or something like that, they didn't have that to worry about on top of everything else. It's little things like this that you can put in place and you can be proactive with, that will make a massive difference to your day. If you have a manager who, maybe works in the evenings, they may send you emails at that time. Do you need to have a discussion with that person to say, are you expecting me to respond at that time, or is it just that's when you work? It can be very easy to fall into these traps of being available all hours to all people, and that is not how you can kind of maintain kind of yourself and your well-being, and also kind of your work patterns. So just have a think about what you need to work at your best, and have the relevant conversations with the people that do impact on that. Okay, so think longer term. I mean, this is one, unfortunately, I think we do need to think about. Last year it felt constantly like we were having these glimmers of hope, and that it was about to change, and soon we'd be able to book holidays, soon we'd be able to see people, blah blah blah. And what's ended up happening is it's coming up to a year of us in this kind of lockdown or kind of semi-lockdown situation. So have a think to yourself, how long have you got between now and the end of your placement, and what can you do to kind of make that the most comfortable time, and the best time for you in terms of your productivity and what you can achieve. Obviously the vaccine is happening, but it's not going to be a very quick kind of return to normal. So if there are any elements of working from home or the pandemic that you are struggling with, have a think about what they are, And then based on what we've kind of talked about today, what can you do regularly that will kind of maintain you kind of moving forward and over a longer period of time that we are likely to be in this situation? You know, it can be anything, you know, there's a couple of prompts there, you know, are there other things that you could do to speak to people online? Is there, you know, a space in where you're living that would be a better space for you to work in, but, you know, you've kind of put it off thinking, oh, you know, we're not going to be working from home for that long. You know, do something about it now, because we are going to be in this situation for, you know, a matter of months, not weeks, you know, if not longer. So don't put anything off that could help you. Yeah, take action now, and then your future self will thank you. So coming back to kind of the end of what Amy was saying, this is hugely important. Be kind to yourself. Obviously, as Amy covered, this is a completely bizarre situation that we are all in. You know, while there are loads of positives to working from home, you know, I'm sure like we have, you know, like for myself, and I think, you know, I can speak for Kia as well. We've both kind of had discussions that, you know, we are the type of people that really miss that kind of in-office situation and having people around you, and like teamwork is a massive thing to me. And yes, you can do effective teamwork online, but I really miss kind of the people and the team kind of situation. So, you know, I then need to use that information to think to myself, okay, how can I, you know, still feel connected to my team? How can I, yeah, kind of do more to look after myself in that area, because I know that that isn't going to return for a little while. And like, I'm definitely somebody that puts stuff off. So, you know, like you know, there's loads of resources and there's loads of talk about mindfulness and yoga and meditation and stuff like that. And it's, you know, for the whole pandemic, I've been like, oh, I'm definitely going to start doing yoga and all this kind of stuff. I'm only now starting to do yoga now, and seeing the benefits, you know. So try these things, you know, nothing, you don't lose anything from trying them. Think about what works for you, what are your needs and your values, and what has been kind of the worst impact on you over the past 12 months, and how can you mitigate that moving forward. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. Please don't think that everyone around you is absolutely smashing it, and you know, everyone in the company that you work for is just like finding this all fine and normal and is achieving loads of stuff. I can guarantee you every single person has felt some kind of struggle, is struggling in some way. And you'd be surprised if you did start these kind of conversations with people, how many people would be like, yeah, I'm really fed up, or I'm really struggling with this, or really struggling with that. So yeah, just be patient with yourself, and really kind of, you know, look back at the stuff that Amy covered around, you know, your needs, and don't expect yourself to be super motivated every day. Try these little things, and there should be kind of an overall positive impact for you. So I'm going to take a minute now and we'll have a look at the poll results, which will hopefully be a little bit entertaining. And then what I'm going to go into then is, you know, kind of looking at your placement stuff. Okay, so brill. Okay, so lots of people in joggers, excellent. No 3-piece suits. I'm really disappointed, guys. I thought you'd put the effort in for our session. Great to see the PJs. That is what I like to see. So where are you working from now? Desks, brilliant. That's really, really good to see. But you know, it's a reality of kind of the sofa and the bed and the kind of the other spaces. I just couldn't cope with life this morning personally, so I spent the first couple of hours of my day working from my bed. So don't feel self-conscious that that's you. Everyone's doing it. But that's really positive to see that a lot of you have kind of put you know, the effort into setting up some kind of desk and workspace for yourselves. That's really good. So who has connected with a placement manager on LinkedIn? 88% said yes. Brilliant. That's really good. So some of the things I'm going to talk about in a minute is, you know, how to make the most of, you know, you might be coming to the end of your placement, or you might have a couple more months left. Regardless of how long you have left, I just want to give you some tips on how to make the most of that time in terms of then being the most employable moving forward. So that's great. Thank you, Kia. So some of you obviously are already doing this. You're already being active on LinkedIn, which is fab. But before you leave your placement, before you have your kind of last days in employment at this company, have a think about who have you worked with, who would you like to work with, who might be useful for you, your future, your personal development, your future development, and connect with them. You know, if while you're still in employment, while you've still got kind of that job title that pops up when the connection comes through, people are far more likely to kind of just be like, yep, connected, lovely. So do that kind of while you're still in employment would be kind of a key bit of advice. Don't let it just be people that you work directly with. If, you know, you've discovered that, you know, you've really enjoyed your placement, but you know, you've seen that like the HR department looks really cool or anything like that, you know, connect with colleagues in any department that you're interested in, connect with people in the recruitment team. You know, there might not be people that you kind of engage with right now, but they could be really useful for you in the future. So hopefully you all know what a recommendation on LinkedIn is. I've just popped kind of a screenshot of what they look like. So this is basically like a mini reference. They are super easy to get while you're still working with people. So ask your manager, ask a colleague, ask, you know, someone that you've done a bit of work for while you've been on placement to just write you a short recommendation on LinkedIn. You can kind of send them a prompt actually through the LinkedIn page. Doesn't have to be anything, you know, crazy or specific. It can just be, you know, this person was enthusiastic and, you know, really positive to work with, and I would work with them again. These are great to see on your LinkedIn page for future employers. So for you guys, you're going to be applying for graduate schemes, or you might be kind of you might be coming back to the kind of the company you're in now. But yeah, they look fab. It's a really kind of feel good activity, and it kind of gives you, you know, a load of mini references for when a company might check you out on LinkedIn during your application process. So this one, so shadowing, this is a little bit trickier now that obviously everything is online. In a normal year, I would be suggesting to you guys, you know, go and have a chat with anyone in the company that, you know, you'd be interested to know a little bit more about their department, or, you know, a day in the life of what they do. Definitely something you should still consider and still see if it's an option. It might not be, you know, shadowing someone for a full day, but you could, you know, at least, you know, ask somebody, you know, like, I'm coming to the end of my placement, but I've really enjoyed working with you, or I've seen that, you know, what you do in the finance department, or, you know, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be directly within kind of what you've worked on. Just ask them if you could have a meeting with them to kind of pick their brains. That meeting is your opportunity to find out more about a department that you might apply for as a graduate. You know, you're also potentially giving them a really positive impression if you were to then, you know, apply for that area in the future. And it's also something you can add to your CV as a way that you took advantage of your time on placement to the maximum. So just have a think about some of those. If you're not sure how to approach any of them, just get in touch with myself or your coordinator, and we can help you in that sense as well. So just kind of building on that then. Sorry, it's my laptop that's freaking out. Hang on 1 second. So have a think about, in between kind of now and either when you finish your placement, or also in between now and when you return in September, is there any like gaps or things that you've seen, or any kind of like additional training that you could take advantage of? Is there any kind of internal free stuff that you could, you know, be taking advantage of in between now and when you leave? You know, really think about how to make the most of being an employee at that company right now. Have a think about, you know, find out if your company is planning on recruiting students again. Could you offer to be part of that process? If they've already started that process and you're, you know, still going to be there, or there's going to be overlap, could you offer to be a mentor for that person? If you would like to stay at the company, ask now about graduate opportunities. you know, book a meeting with your manager. If you can book a meeting with someone that's involved in, you know, the graduate recruitment, try and get in with them as well, or ask via your manager. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get. And it can also give you an idea of what to expect if, you know, there isn't a pipeline that's, you know, or you do a placement and then you automatically get a graduate role. You know, ask what would make you stand out if you were to come back and apply. You know, yeah, use the opportunities that are there. So for previous students, quite a lot of them have ended up working part-time alongside their studies in their final year for the company that they've done their placement with. No harm in asking about this either. You know, this could be as a bit of a champion for the company. You know, could you help raise awareness of that brand or that company while you're studying? Or for some people it's been, you know, a proper part-time role. It could be 1 day a week that you're still helping with their accounts, or still helping with, you know, recruitment, or, you know, anything like that. And just think about how that looks on your CV, think about how that looks, you know, for future employment. And also, if you do want to stay at that company, or if you do want to return to that company as a graduate, you know, showing that you're willing to put the hours in and stay kind of connected with them while you're back studying is super important, and obviously demonstrates, you know, lots of positive things about you. Okay, so this might be an obvious one. Hopefully it's an obvious one. So you will have to update your CV for the assessments that you'll have to do at the end of your placement. What I'm going to show you in a second is an example of where a student has updated their CV and put their placement experience quite successfully on their CV. You should be doing this for yourself, for returning to final year, and for you know, your graduate applications anyway. But just to give you an idea of, you know, it doesn't have to be complicated, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking. You can see with this one, they've mentioned that they're on placement in their personal bio. So for you guys, you know, by the time you finish, you should be saying, I've recently completed my year in placement. And then they've just added a section about their year in industry in their career history. So that's all we expect to see, but we do expect to see it. I do not want to see any CVs where there's no mention of your placement, you haven't written about it, you haven't kind of used that experience kind of on your CV, okay? And the same goes then for your LinkedIn. You can use the same content to update. I realise that we've gone over time, I'm really sorry. I'm going to fly through these last bits. So kind of on a similar theme to kind of making the most of your time while you're still on placement, either when you finish placement or you know, leading up to September. Make sure you update your LinkedIn. Anything you put on your CV should also be on your LinkedIn, so make sure you've added all that there. Start to think about what kind of companies that you're going to want to apply for graduate roles. Start making a list of those companies. We've got kind of example spreadsheets from previous students where you've got the name of the company, the deadline, whether you've done online application, video interview, you know, what stage you're at. Be organised, it will really help you when you get into your third year. So apply to be a School of Management Employability Champion. So this is paid roles that we offer only to returning placement students. It is an opportunity for you to give back to the next cohort of students, but also continue to add experience to your CV. So every year we have a group of these students that, you know, do webinars or seminars when we're in person. They provide advice for kind of the next cohort of placement students coming through. Really, really lovely role, really kind of adds value to what we do, but also is a really nice kind of give back then to the school. So as I mentioned, if you've discovered any gaps or experience that you want to work on between now and when you start your graduate role, this links into kind of the learning element of what Amy mentioned. You know, on top of the kind of things that she's listed previously, there's also lots of free stuff that you can get through the Open University. LinkedIn Learning, you can get a month's free subscription. But also there are so many people on Instagram and LinkedIn that are just, you know, giving out free content about you know, marketing or, you know, different work techniques or, you know, anything like that. So, you know, take advantage of that content because it's free. Okay, so we're nearly at the end, I promise. So this is just a prompt to stay connected with us. You know, anything that you can get involved with, we will be posting on the Instagram, on Facebook, etc., etc. As current placement students, we will probably be reaching out to you at some point to ask for case studies because you guys, you know, have been really successful. You might not always kind of feel like it, but it's amazing that you've got your placement. It's amazing that you stayed on placement through a pandemic. You know, we want to hear from you, hear about kind of the struggles, also the positives, you know, how you've managed it. So, and again, something you can add to your CV is something that you've done, either do kind of a vlog, a webinar, a written case study. Yeah, so we're really keen to kind of hear from you. So what we're going to do now, so some of the feedback that we've got is that you guys want to kind of connect with each other, meet other placement students. What we tend to find is going into final year, some of the best groups in terms of final year projects and group work projects are groups that are, you know, placement students that have kind of banded together and formed groups. So we're just going to create some breakout rooms for you guys to just meet each other, have a chat, you know, ask each other about the placements, how you're finding things, and hopefully you'll then kind of form valuable connections to go into your final year. So Kia, if you could redo that, that would be great. And thank you for listening. And if you guys will kind of pop back in and let you know when the session finishes, or if you want to kind of continue chatting, we'll leave it open.